Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Fight. I am Mike.
I'm Zach. Welcome to The Fight.
Welcome to The Fight. So, we have a lot going on since our last episode. We have the purge that's going on. That continues, getting ramped up more than ever. We have DC buckled down like 20,000 troops. I think they said we're there now, more than we even have in Iraq right now, according to one stat that I heard. And we got inauguration day coming up next week. Now, I don't know about you. I've really, since the 6th and the fallout afterwards, and since our last video, I've really felt like almost like just being stuck in like a state of limbo. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, especially with the networks and everything being down, communication was cut. All of a sudden, you go from being connected every day, and now that's just severed. Everything's down. You don't really know what's going on, except for maybe what Newsmax or Fox might say, and that's not, reliable when it comes to the details behind the scenes, what's going on. And really, so it's just kind of left me in this place of feeling like in limbo or purgatory, where I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens.
You're left out of the loop now.
Right.
It's all because they cut our communications. What's the first thing you're going to do in any combat situation? You're going to cut
communications. If possible. Jam them, interrupt them.
Yeah, and just corner them. Take them one at a time. It makes sense. You know what I mean?
It does. And it's scary.
So.
Because, we haven't seen this before. They talk all the time about, and I'm one of the people that was on the side of this is a private business argument. You know what I mean? Google, Apple, all of them, Amazon, those are private companies. And they have a right to do what they want with their company.
Actually, no.
Well, yes, but if that's going to be the case, then they shouldn't get that 230 protection.
Well, see, it's not. Look at it like this: we are no longer in days of past where not every, the only way to get access to talking to someone is by going and meeting them or driving somewhere, right? So we're all connected through these social apps, right? That's how we interact with people. That's how we see what's going on in the world. That's like our new, that's our news. That's our, hey, I'm feeling down. Maybe I'll just watch some comedy. You know what I mean? Go check out that stuff. It's like that's how we communicate with one another. Once they cut that down, you're cut off from the world. Now you no longer know what's going on over here. You no longer you're back to square one. And we gotten so comfortable and used to having this network and being able to interact with one another and see what's going on in the world that now we're lost, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's and especially in times right now where everything has been escalating tremendously, and right before it gets like it could be the tip of the spear, everything gets cut. Now you don't know what's going on.
Right.
That's scary, bro. There could be a lot more going on that you don't know.
Right.
All you can do is be prepared and just try your best to have the mindset to protect you and your family. And
yeah, because it is getting bad, and that's what scares me more than how aggressively they're going about the purge and trying to silence conservatives. What's really scary to me, and something that I hope people take seriously and I hope they pay attention to it, is the culture against Trump supporters and conservatives in general. And the rhetoric and the mindset has gotten so amped up to where the things that they're saying against us are so egregious, really, that I feel like a lot of people aren't even comprehending it, or they're shrugging it off as partisanism or any of that, you know what I mean? But I really think that people need to understand that they're dead serious. Like, they really hate us that much. That's really how they feel about us. You know what I mean? And if we are not careful, we can allow some really bad things to be done to us. For example, you have like the chief principal or chief whatever his title is of PBS made a statement where he said that the children of Trump supporters should be taken from their parents and put in re-education camps, because Trump supporters are terrible people who are raising terrible children who will become more terrible people in the future. And the only way to save them from their Trump supporter parents would be to go in, like child services in the state, take the children, literally take them away, and put them into, and he even called them re-education camps. You know what I mean? Like, he used that terminology. That's not me adding anything to it. That's exactly how he said it.
It's because they're threatened by people who think for themselves.
Right. Well, the problem is nobody had a problem with it. You know what I mean? But everybody on our side is being attacked for inciting violence, including Trump. We just had Trump 2.0. He was impeached again within a matter of a couple days. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they make up their own rules and they can do what they want. And so they talk about us inciting violence for just saying words like, we have to fight back against this, or patriotically, or patriots, and fighting back. And all of that is horrible rhetoric that incites violence and is going to cause an insurrection to rise up. Meanwhile, we just had 4 years of the most awful things said about Trump and his supporters. You had celebrities holding mock cut-off heads of Donald Trump. You had politicians calling for, if you see conservatives or Republicans and Maxine Waters in public, form a mob, get in their face, let them know that they are not welcome here. And now you have, the escalation of that continues now. And now you have, right, and you have AOC talking about, putting us on lists. And you have prominent members like the chief of PBS saying that our children should be put in re-education camps, or maybe us as well. And they're not joking. They're not just being extreme in their rhetoric. They mean it, and they will do it if they're allowed to.
That's why Cuomo wrote that law to give him power, him and his people, that if you're deemed a risk to public health. Now, there's different avenues you could look at when it comes to that. You could look at what's the right word? I just left it. Basically, when you're no good for, oh my God, I'm just gonna say.
He's talking about how he would classify us as unsafe to the public if you have COVID.
Okay, yeah. So we're a threat to public health. That's what I was trying to say. So we're a threat to public health. It could be because of COVID. Could it be because we're pro-Trump, we're pro-gun, anyone who's pro-gun is a racist and a scary person, that's a bad guy, let's not go for him. That's a risk to public health. They're going to go against our plan. Where they can take us away to those camps because we're no longer, we're going to protect ourselves.
And exactly to your point, as soon as we as a society deem it's okay to take people based on public health risk, or being contagious with a disease, then what's to stop that after that point becoming, well, we have to take you for this, we have to take you for that. You're an extremist, you're putting out propaganda, and you're trying to raise up an insurgency because you're critical of the government. You know what I mean? And it'll be exactly that. It won't even need violence. It'll just be, your rhetoric is dangerous and insightful, and as they talk about, shooting squads around us and taking us to camps, but we're the violent terrorists.
They literally shot Trump supporters just for being Trump supporters.
Right, that's not talked about.
And the buildings were burned. People lost their jobs, their livelihoods. People lost their lives.
Right, we had 8 months of riots.
Yet we got people who peacefully went into a building for like an hour, 2 hours, whatever it was. Didn't destroy anything. I even saw videos. The guy picked up the thing that separates people, like the rope.
Dude, you see the footage. Casually. You see the footage of them going in, and they stayed within the velvet ropes.
That's
when they were going through you got this angry mob in between the velvet rope. You know what I mean? Now, sure, some furniture was banged up. You know what I mean? As they went through, some windows were broken, stuff like that.
Actually,
but nobody was ripping down paintings. Nobody was trying to set the place on fire. No, you know what I mean?
Did you hear? My mom showed me the news the other day, and there was a video they were basically talking about proof that an Antifa agitators were there, and
Right.
they actually caught the person supposedly. And I guess it's something along the lines of I didn't pay too much attention, but something along the lines of it's going to be coming out with the information about the Obama Gate scandal against Trump.
Yeah.
So it's good, but basically, so they what they were saying was that they had a few people who were agitators, right? So you had the one guy who rushed in, who started the, hey, let's take the Capitol, right?
Right.
And of course, our people being patriotic were like, fuck it, if we're storming the Capitol, we're gonna fucking storm the Capitol, and went in following him. Then you had some of them that were just breaking windows. Those were agitators too. But our side was like, nah, we're not about that life, and we left that alone.
Right.
So, but we followed everyone.
Well, we do know that there was a few in the group, and we even have like the one of the main ones is even on video now, admitting that he was an Antifa guy and how he's blending in. I think like CNN even interviewed this guy while he was pretending to be a Trump supporter. You know what I mean, or something like that. But there was a couple there, but
It was mostly our guy.
Trump supporters occupied the Capitol building. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, they had that, like I said, they had that.
But they use
mean-
that to turn us into terrorists or label us as terrorists. You know what I mean? A couple hours in one day, and like everybody already knows, that happened well before Trump was even done with his speech or even really that far into his speech. You know what I mean? Now contract that with the 8 months of riots, which you know we're not going to continue to harp on because the news does it enough for us. That's all every show is about, is whataboutism, with no real action, or you know what I mean. Conservative media falls into that trap time and time and time again, every single time. Every time something happens, you know, they go overboard far and beyond condemning their own side, and to the we're like what 2-3 weeks. You know, the 6th was 2 weeks ago, something like that. And still, you turn on Newsmax this morning, and if they even hint at the 6th or graze over it, they have to get in that full paragraph about how terrible we are. You know what I mean? And then they do the whataboutism, comparing it to the riots, but they always fall into that same trap. See, and that's along with what I was saying earlier about wanting people to take the rhetoric from the left seriously, that they really mean this, is also realize who they really are. You know what I mean? This isn't just politics. You know what I mean? This is personal to them. This is a personal war, and they intend to win it. So you sitting there talking about their hypocrisy, that's not going to affect them. They don't care. They'll be hypocrites all day. They're here to win. And they push forward, and they push forward, and they push forward, and everybody's on board, and everybody goes with it. You never see a defector. You wouldn't see 10 Democrats voting on an impeachment for Joe Biden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would never see that. If you even so much as got one to go along with you, then conservative media would make a huge deal about that. Like, oh, bipartisan, it's bipartisan. But that's the most you're ever going to get. You know what I mean?
Well, I did read that they're talking about impeaching Trump already. Biden. They're talking about impeaching Biden.
I think there's like one Republican senator or something who said that like on the 27th she was going to file articles of impeachment or whatever. But I feel like it's just a big sham. You know what I mean? As it always is from elected Republicans. They're going to make a show of it. They're going to pretend like they're fighting back, but they're not, and it's not going to have any teeth, and they're not going to be vicious about it. You know what I mean? It's going to be a big fucking game like it always is to them. And it's like they're content with being second grade members as long as as long as they can be allowed to be part of the club. You know what I mean? So they're okay with the Democrats running everything. They're okay with them being second tier government members, but as long as they just get to be part of the group, you know what I mean? As long as they can just keep their spot.
You made him sound like that scene on Friday where he's like, I want to give my money, and Dee was like, you would? He's like, I lost.
That is exactly elected Republican. You know what? We're gonna make it into a meme. We're gonna get some video together and we're gonna splice it in here somehow. Now, someday we'll learn how to edit and we'll be able to do cool shit like that. But that's exactly how elected Republicans are. And Democrats are Debo. That's a perfect way to think about that. And that's exactly how they are. You know what I mean? He's like, remember I let you borrow my bike? Whose bike? Oh, your bike. You know what I mean? That's exactly how they are. Like, you know, so when the cameras are on, Republicans will make like this big statement or act like they're really giving it to members of the left. You know what I mean? And then the Democrats are like, what'd you say? And they're like, we lost.
Exactly how it is.
It's like they stood up and it was like, I don't know, there's some funny things going on with this election, and the Democrats were like, what? We lost.
Even Pence, like, oh, congratulations.
Right, and they were all too eager. Mitch McConnell, all of them. You would never see that attitude from the left. They are driven. They are, and it's true hate. And I really hope that people take it seriously.
Last time I've seen that much hate, well, not me personally, but God, no. Well, 1944.
It really is, because that's exactly how that. Now, I hate both sides of the aisle, the media, social media, all over the place. You always see everything's compared to Nazis. Everything's compared to Hitler. Everything's Hitler, everything's the Nazi. Alright? First of all, the left has been calling us Nazis and fascists forever. Alright? Anybody who runs a simple translation will know that Nazi, translated into English, means National Socialist German Workers' Party. The Nazi Party is the National Socialist German Workers' Party. That's all you need to know. But yet they've taught history through the lens of the Nazis being right wing. Nazis were only right wing when compared to full on communism. You know what I mean? That's the only thing they were right of. But they were way left of center. They were full blown socialists. You know what I mean? And they had a nice little democracy going right up until about then too. And then they lost their ability to have firearms, and then they lost, one thing after another going all the way down. But this is how this rhetoric starts, okay? And you'll often wonder, how did the Jews let themselves end up at those camps being mass exterminated? Like, how wasn't there? And that's exactly why, because over time. So first you take the firearms away, and then you put these restrictions, you say these things. Now all the time you have the rhetoric of how bad these people are. Right? Now the smart ones pick up onto this, and they know they're in deep trouble. Those are the ones that fled, the ones that got out of the country, went to America, went to other countries. Now the other ones, the majority group, I think, just like we are, oh well, it'll never really happen. They're not really doing that. Come on, man. They don't really want to take your guns. You know what I mean? All the stupid shit that you always hear. All right, until all of a sudden, well, we just have to take you to a re-education camp. You've been watching a little bit too much propaganda. Well, you are contagious with something. You're a public health risk. And maybe the majority of people go here. Maybe if you're on a Trump supporter list, you go to this camp. You know what I mean? It could be something as simple as that.
Back then, they had camps where they were work camps, like slave camps, and other camps where you're done.
Right.
You're on the slaughter, basically.
Right. So, and that's what scares me, is everybody's eagerness to just shrug it off or say, oh, that's just politics, or the people who don't really know about it at all because they don't really pay attention like that. Not that involved in politics. They don't watch big news companies like that. They maybe just catch their local news, and you don't even know about all this rhetoric and everything going on. And the only thing you're going to see is maybe scrolling through Google a couple, media articles that are all going to be from the left wing. And so all you're seeing is, oh shit, now Trump incited those motherfuckers. Oh, now that, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But you never hear about any of the bad stuff they're doing. You know what I mean. So then you just, that's where people see this lens of Trump and Trump people being so bad, because that's all they're told all the time. You know what I mean? And everything else is ignored, to the point where you even have people like Joe Rogan, for example. He's got the largest podcast in the country. You know what I mean? And he's a nice guy, or he thinks of himself as a nice guy. And he talks about, you know, talking to people that you disagree with, and he says nice things like that. But he's liberal. And really, he only has liberal people around him talking. And now, once in a, like, occasionally he might have Alex Jones on, or someone else. But, you know, an example of like Alex Jones, like he's really ineffective at having that kind of conversation with Joe, because Joe's trying to have the long form conversation like what me and you are doing here. And Alex Jones is he's hyper, he's all over the place, and he's jumping from topic to topic, and you know what I mean. And you're never going to get a good conversation out of that. But you would never see Rogan sitting down to have a conversation with, like, say, Trump himself. You know what I mean? Or you know, someone else who's considered maybe far right or alt right, who isn't really. They just believe in a few principles that are being so trampled on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so now you have that. So you have someone like him who thinks he's a nice guy, talks about talking to the other side and everything, but doesn't really. And when you listen to his podcast, he all the time will say horrible things about Trump and Trump supporters. You know, in a recent podcast, he was saying that, oh, well, Trump supporters, you know, they have, like, basically their DNA is just one step up from a primitive ape. You know what I mean? And, oh, they're just stupid, and all those are just stupid people that get all wound up by this guy, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the guest that he had on was even worse, and saying even worse things about us. And Joe gave no pushback at any point, no matter how far it went. He was just right there with it. You know what I mean? And the sad thing is, he's not being purposely that mean. He doesn't even notice he's doing it, because that's just the rhetoric that's going through society right now. So everybody's on board with it, and that's exactly how it happened in Germany. And you know, it's the culture thing. So if you take Joe Rogan and you place him in 1930s, he'd probably be sitting there talking, you know, thinking he's a nice guy, trying to be a nice guy, and talking that same fucking rhetoric against the Jews that was going on in that society. Because that's how it happens. It perforates a society, and then they don't even notice what they're doing. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, they're talking about how much they care, and how you just need to talk with people you disagree with, blah, 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 unity, and all this other fake bullshit. And it scares me. It worries me.
All the lies and shit is kind of fucking the world as far as, like, communications and how people react, and, you know, people's mental health and all. I would say you're lying about this COVID, acting like it's worse than what it really is. And now you got people who just found out, like, as soon as they found out about that stuff, went crazy and got really religious in the things that maybe they wouldn't have done before, trying to stop it. Like, the amount of people that were involved with, like, voodoo has, like, gone way up. If you look it up, there's statistics and stuff like that. I couldn't tell you those numbers, but there's been a huge rise in voodoo and, like, animal sacrifices and stuff. People trying to protect themselves and
Right.
stop themselves from getting COVID. It's
Right.
like, it's just another flu. You're doing all this crazy. You're going down this path. I mean, if you're in the voodoo, you're in the voodoo, I guess. But it was never like it is. I mean, it's not like it was never like this before. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
With that kind
And
of
then
stuff.
you have all this bullshit too, where you're not a doctor, you can't talk about it. We only listen to doctors. No, you only listen to doctors that are approved and chosen. You know what I mean? Okay, just because somebody is smart, just because somebody has a degree and went to school and studied and all that, great. They're great at being a doctor. They're really smart at being a doctor. That doesn't mean they know everything. You know what I mean?
They're both smart.
Right. Well, not only that, but they're smart in that specific topic. But if you're smart like that, then people, anything you say is the Bible, pretty much, because you're a smart guy, so nothing you say would ever be wrong. Where meanwhile, actually, if you took the doctors and put them all together, just like any other group of people, you'd have widely varied opinions all throughout them. You know what I mean? And they would all be based in their intellect in the field, but they're still going to come out with disagreeing conclusions. You know what I mean? Because that's just how people are, and that's what you need. You need all that debate. You need all those different ideas. You know what I mean? So if you just take these half a doctors and throw them out, and they're not allowed to talk, and you just have these ones, and then you say, well, this is what all the doctors say. You know what I mean? And then you can't even question it. Well, you're not a doctor. You know what I mean?
So they're controlling not only the news that you get, the news who you get it from.
Right.
So, like, if you're going to put anything out, it's going to be to their rhetoric.
Yeah.
That they want you to put out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be blacklisted.
Yeah.
Bro, that's so scary.
It is.
That's not
It is.
America
And then
at
you
all.
even have people like that guest I was talking about of Rogan's. I think he was a professor or something. And there was maybe one or two times where Rogan would try to ask him about, well, what do you think about, what about the First Amendment? Because we're supposed to have the First Amendment. And the guy was like, well, actually, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think, pretty much you can do it all you want. I mean, if you think about it, back in such and such a time, people didn't have the internet. People didn't have, their voices couldn't be amplified and they couldn't get an audience. The best you could do is run outside and yell to your neighbors, and maybe that's it. So, no matter how much we censor them, they still have more freedom of speech now than we did back in the way back times. So
But
it's fine.
We're in the now. We're in the present. Where
Right.
That is our voice. That's
Right.
that's the point I was trying to make.
It doesn't
before.
matter if you compare it to 50 years ago. The fact is you're censoring speech now. You're shutting it down now. It doesn't matter. It never said, well, you have the freedom of speech as long as people
don't use
can't
the
talk to
internet.
too many people. You know what I mean?
Like, you're only allowed to talk to this many people in your entire lifetime.
Right. And then he's like making the point also about, back then it was just ABC and NBC on there. So all the information you got was filtered through those three medias. So now, there might be a fourth one. So again, there's more freedom of speech than there's ever been. So you can censor it and it's not a problem.
Most people don't watch the news now. They watch they go on social media.
Right.
That's
and read
the
those
new
feeds.
news. That's the point we were making before earlier.
Right.
So you are taking away our voice.
Right.
Whether you want to admit it or not. On paper, are you? No, because it's just an app. But at the end of the day, if that's how we're communicating with each other and that's how we talk, that's our communications now.
Mm-hmm.
That's like saying that you can no longer write and plain English now. You have to go back to the old school cursive, to communicate with people. And people no longer write. Some people do, I'm sure, but it's not the common form of writing anymore.
Right. Like they don't even teach it in school anymore.
No.
It's just gonna be like Latin, like it's a dead.
That's like the same idea. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just because something advances and becomes more modernized, doesn't. It's still the same thing. It's just a different form of it. It's just modernized.
Yeah.
So that's all social media is modernizing the way we communicate with each other. We're no longer writing letters and attaching it to pigeons' feet and like, go get them, what I mean?
Right. And I will admit that worries me. And that the tribalism worries me. And the rift that's got us divided in how far. Like the way we're going right now, something's got to give. Because there's no way that these two opposite ideologies will be able to coexist. You know what I mean? So that's where you see talks of secession and something's got to give. Either there's got to be a coming to in the middle, and we go back to doing it how we used to, where it was civil, and actually, although you'd have to go back really more than 20 years when you think about it to get back to that point. But that's why you hear about secession in this. So that does worry me, the tribalism and whatnot. Now, in a perfect world, and everybody going so deep into their corner, in a perfect world, I'm somebody who believes that balance is best. So in a perfect world, I think you should watch 30 minutes of CNN, 30 minutes of Fox News, try to land somewhere in between the two and separate the bullshit from the important stuff. You know what I mean? And not only that, but and then when it comes to voting, not vote for someone just because they have an R or a D, but vote on the person. And it's okay to vote for both. You know what I mean? You can vote for a Democrat. You can vote for a Republican.
Yeah, as long as you're voting
Before, now you can't. Now it's so divided. The ideologies are so different that you cannot vote for the other side because they are literally your enemy and they are literally trying to destroy you. And there's no common ground.
I was even registered as an independent, and I got a letter of mail saying, "Oh, yeah, sorry, you can't vote this year. It doesn't count." So it's like, so you're telling me that basically I have to choose.
Right.
If I want my vote to count, I better choose one side or the other. And then once I do make that choice and I'm registered whatever, so I'll be registered Republican, right?
Right.
Because
what other choice is there?
Right. So I'm registered as Republican. All of a sudden, they go down the voter registry list. Oh, look at all these Republicans. We decide they're a threat to our health.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're national terrorists.
It's like a registry, bro. They're forcing your hand. It's like you have to choose this or that. You can't be one of those neutral guys. That's what they don't want.
There is no neutral. I mean, it's even like, and again, I go back to it. You know what I mean? Like your podcasters and stuff. Like Rogan would describe himself as slightly left of center. He admits that he's liberal, slightly left of center. There is no center. You know what I mean? No, you're left or you're right, and that's it. And if you are center, then you probably don't pay attention and aren't really, you know what I mean? So you're only in the center because you're not part of it. You know what I mean? You're not in it. You don't really. It doesn't have anything to do with your life.
No, you gotta wait just a second here, though, all right? Because there are some things that like.
There's topics where you can be in the center. You know what I mean? Ideologically.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to some right-wing people. I mean, they're all.
But it doesn't matter if I slightly agree with these people over here because they're trying to end me. So I can't vote for them no matter what.
I know.
So I have to vote this side, or I have to vote this side. So even though maybe my ideology might be center, which I think most people's are.
Like I don't believe in club and seals, but some guys be like, hey,
right? I don't. Well, and that's another thing I try to. I hate that just because we question climate change, like we admit the climate's changing, but we say how much of that is really man-made and how much of that is natural, because Earth is always in a constant state of climate change. I mean, imagine if you were part of the last ice age, right? And then it's oh my God, climate change. Well, mastodons weren't driving SUVs around, or was it mastodon flatulence that melted all those ice caps? I mean, that's a lot of ice caps to melt. Right. So it just happened, but you see it's gone back and forth over and over and over again as part of cycles. So how much of that is natural? Now, that being, they think that automatically that means, oh, they don't believe in climate change, or they don't believe in the man-made climate change. Okay, no, all we're saying is, yes, the climate is changing, and yes, we can all agree that pumping fucking chemicals into the air isn't the best idea. We should have as little of that as possible. And it's like I always tell people, who do you think your conservationists are? Who do you think your DEC is? Who do you think your park rangers are? You know what I mean? Conservatives, that's who. Your outdoorsmen, your people. We love nature. You know what I mean? We're always the ones that go out and are appalled when we see the trash. We're the ones that leave zero footprint out there. Like, I'm a smoker, you know what I mean? And I won't even let a cigarette butt hit the ground. They're always pocketed. They're always trashed. You know what I mean? Because it's just about that respect, and I hate how they use that. And all of a sudden now we don't care about the planet. We don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
I hate when I go somewhere and you see someone just bought some property and the first thing you do is completely wipe out all the trees. They log and clear everything to us.
Yeah, like I hate that.
And then you turn it into a potato field or something like that. Like, I'm gonna start farming.
Like we can all agree that all that shit is bad. Whaling, I was all about Greenpeace and them being out there ending that way back when that was going on, which wasn't really that far back, but it seems like it. You know what I mean? Mountaintop removal, that form of mining that they're doing in the Appalachians is horrendous. It is horrendous and absolutely, they're basically just starting at the top and leveling Appalachian mountains. You know what I mean? To where you get where there's just half of one left and the top is completely flat. Because they were like, well, instead of digging these tunnels through, if we just start removing it, we get everything. And it's easier and it's less risky and all that shit. So we can all agree that all these things are bad. And there's downsides to everything. Now with fracking, that's something where that we really have to talk about. Because, okay, there might be some things that aren't great, but is it worth our country having energy independence? Probably.
Actually,
Probably.
We should probably say that for another video.
Right.
Maybe our next video.
Yeah, I don't want to get too in deep to that, but just used as a description of how we're the exact opposite of not caring about the planet or the environment. You know what I mean? And that's all I really wanted to get out. But, so going back to our original topic and moving that forward a little bit. So we've been talking about all the rhetoric and everything that's going on. Now, let's talk about a little bit about right now and this limbo that we're in. Next week we have the inauguration coming up. We're talking about, they said, like 20,000 troops are in D.C.? Mm-hmm. I mean, where do you see this going?
There's definitely some conspiracy theories out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I gotta say, they got me pumped as shit. I hope to God they're true. Please, Lord, let it be true. I don't want to spread lies. I don't misinformation. I don't want to say it is true. I'll talk about it a little bit, but basically the story is, and obviously, like, I'm gathering bits and pieces here and there from
right.
Everyone's saying.
Well, especially with everything being all over the place right now,
and our loss of community,
which I think is helping to spread stuff. You know what I mean? Because people are getting now less information, but the little bit they are getting, they're spreading around real quick because everybody's hungry for information.
Yeah, it's the dark time basically.
Mm-hmm.
So we just gotta make it through the night, guys, and we'll be all right. But basically, there's like a special forces teams that have been designated by the Secretary of Defense. I don't know why I always forget that. Anyway,
right.
They're following orders underneath the Secretary of Defense and Trump. And basically, they're preparing and stationing for the 20th while there's supposed to be the inauguration and Biden's supposed to give a speech. I'm sure they'll let him start the speech. It'll probably be more epic if they did. Let him start a speech, let his side all think that they won. But behind the scenes, while everyone's focusing on that, we're going to be arresting all of the, I don't know if we can arrest all of them at the same time, but some of the head honchos that had their hands in the cookie jar with the stealing of this election.
Right.
So you got people like Pelosi and a few of these other Democrats like that, and that once they're arrested, Trump's going to come out and he's going to basically give a speech that this is what's going on, this is what's happened, and he may or may not declare martial law just so that he can get things under control. And those are conspiracy theories. I can't prove that. That's what. Obviously, we wouldn't know the truth until it happens anyway.
Right.
It's not like he's a great commander. He's not going to be like, all right, this is our plan, everybody. Just so you know what we're about to do. Hint, hint. You know what I mean? He just does it without even talking.
Right.
And that's what makes him a great leader. And so I'm hoping that this is what's going to happen. I've even seen in the comments one of the guys who's supposed to be a special forces guy was saying, "Don't worry, guys. We got America under control. Everything's going to be all right." You know what I mean? I can't talk about it, but it's going to be all right. And that gave me hope. Like, I mean, it could have been someone who was like basically false flagging or whatever, you know, claiming to be something they're not. But they gave me some hope.
Right. And I'll say, you know, like when I was talking to you about it, and we've heard it, you know, from various people around us, and it really, and even a couple people online I've had, you know, talk to me about it. And I'll say, like I told them, which is how I really feel, that sounds great. That sounds awesome. If there's, you know, even if it's not specifically that, if there was something going on where finally some people are going to be, excuse me, held accountable, and some of this can get fixed. You know what I mean? That sounds great. I'm hoping that maybe there's some truth behind some of that, but I don't see it. You know what I mean? But, you know what I mean? Like everybody, you know what I mean? I've been wrong plenty before. I'll continue to be wrong in the future, and I'll learn from it. Everybody's wrong sometimes. So these are just ideas, but just how things sit now, I don't know. That would be like a huge rally, because the way I see it right now is a very defeated group of elected Republicans. They've all surrendered back to the left, and that's the thing. The Republican Party now is signaling very clearly that they want to go back to being them old selves. They want to go back to the old ways of Republicans. So they want to be like Paul Ryan Republicans, fiscal Wall Street conservatives. You know, they just want to talk about taxes and corporate this and that and be part of the losing team. But, you know what I mean? And I know myself, and I know much of our side is all saying, we're not going back to that. We are not going back to that. You guys are bad enough the way you are now. We can't even get you to do anything. Look at, right now with the Democrats controlling all of government, they're going to be coming hard. Now, put that up against 2016. The Republicans won all of government and controlled all of government. For the first 2 years of Trump's presidency, Republicans ran everything and did nothing. Even with the majority, they wouldn't do anything. And things didn't actually start happening until after the 2018 midterm elections. Democrats took back the House, which gave Trump that opposition, and it really became a battle just between House Democrats and Trump. And still, you had nothing but Republicans giving it, like, everything Trump accomplished, he accomplished by himself. You know what I mean? With his sheer will alone. Because he's never had any allies. He's never... It's always been this way. But I'm not going back to that old kind of Republican Party. I won't be a part of it. I hated them then. I still hate them now. I actually have more respect for a liberal than I do an elected Republican. Because at least with them, I know who I'm dealing with. And I know who they are. You know what I mean? With elected Republicans, you never know what the hell you're going to get. Are they going to pretend to be on my side today? Are they just going to stab us all in the back today? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's going to be... I'm just counting down. It's going to be crazy to see what happens on the 20th, bro. All I'm saying is, if the conspiracy theories are true, that's going to be a time to celebrate, but it's also going to be a time we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, because that means they're going to fight back hard, bro. It's like going out to punch a snake in the face, bro. It's gonna fucking...
Worse than that. Worse than that. And, you know, I was saying this to a few people, too, like, after the 6 happened and everybody lost their mind. You know, I was telling people, like, if this is all it takes to shake you, if this is all it takes to collapse the group, you know what I mean? Then we're done. And it's not even, you know what I mean? You are going to have to get some thicker skin than that. You know what I mean? Because the Democrats haven't even begun yet to seriously try to shut us down. You know what I mean?
I think what's going to end up happening...
Like with this purge, I think this is the first, like, hint of what we can... Like, them actually trying to shut us down.
It might get bad if they decide to call for help, especially if Trump makes those arrests and demands martial law, or pulls martial law. Then they're going to cry for help to the UN. And there might be... I don't want to jump on board with this conspiracy theories. I'm just saying, like, shit could... Depending on how they play their cards and how pissed off we get them, shit could get very, very hairy.
Right, and that's exactly what I mean by, like, being stuck in a state of limbo. Like, you have this weird information that's coming in pieces from different directions, and
it makes anxiety that much worse.
Right, and you don't know really what's going on, and your communications are cut, and so you're really just waiting to see what happens. Like, today's not the 20th, so I'm just gonna get through today to see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, what is coming? What is gonna... I think that, you know, they talk about, like, a collective conscience. You know what I mean? And they've done studies where, like, before big natural disasters and stuff, you know what I mean? There's a pickup in the general public of people sensing that something might be off or wrong. And I think that that's happening right now. I think everybody has, like, a sense of foreboding. I think everybody has a sense that something big is coming, but we're not sure what that is.
Dude, you're seeing a rise in security, and not just the capital, but all the major cities across America.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every state is guarding their capital. It's not just the federal capital.
Think about it tactically, right? Let's say Joe Biden, they're all standing behind Joe Biden, and this is all Joe Biden's doing, right? So as soon as he becomes inaugurated, he has access to all major cities, all military. He's ready for a fight, bro. That's what he's doing. So as soon as he gets all inaugurated, he expects shit to go down. And if he is inaugurated, he's going to activate them people against American citizens. And if you think about it,
well, they already are. I mean, look at the purge that's going on. You know what I mean? Like, they have 0 Fs to give, but it's all in the name of they have to get us because we're dangerous and we're spreading hate and we're like I was talking about, like, they got, like, how deep he was going, and Rogan was just letting him, like, he was literally saying that we are nothing but white supremacists, racist bigots, and all this and all that. And I'm like, if you have ever even taken a moment to look at, like, a Trump rally or DC or the protests, just like any other large group of people, we are every shape, size, and color. And there are all kinds of us that, you know what I mean?
There's people from China that were there.
Right, handing out anti-CCP shit.
Yeah.
Because they understand what the hell communism is. Like, what they're you know what I mean? And we've seen a lot of that, of them banding with the MAGA movement and all that, because they're desperate. Like, okay, if you remember back to before COVID, remember there was massive protests in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. Hong Kong is the last place where capitalism is just openly allowed. You know what I mean? So they had those massive protests going on where they were waving American flags and saying stuff. And then all of a sudden COVID, and all of that just went away. We never heard what happened. It all just got shut down. China's like, I mean, China has been eager to reclaim Hong Kong and shut that shit down. You know what I mean? And I feel like that happened. I feel like COVID came from China, right? They limited its spread within China while still letting it go out to other countries. And then the whole world got focused on COVID, as you would expect, because it is something that had to be addressed. And meanwhile, China's just gonna, let's just shut these people up real quick. Let's just re-grab Hong Kong. You guys all get shipped away. Uyghur Muslims are getting sterilized. We don't want them having babies. So we're gonna do, like, basically genocide, but through sterilization. You know what I mean? Because the UN won't say nothing about that. Yeah. Nobody says anything about that. It is so goddamn dangerous.
And it's actually very scary. Dangerous and scary.
It is. But we're you know what I mean, white supremacists, bigots, and you know, and that was really a big failure when I saw him, and you know, many others. You know, it's the whole culture. I'm just using him as an example. You know what I mean? But no matter what they say, it's just allowed to slide. They don't even hear it. You know what I mean? Like, somebody says something that, well, they're just white supremacists, bigots, you know, barely separated from primate DNA.
Because it helps separate.
And they need to go, now you're not a person anymore. Now you're dehumanized. And even people who think they're nice and think they care about people are having that said about a whole group of people, and they're like, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Terrible people.
You know what I mean? But that is the culture against anybody who isn't on board with the left right now, and we really have to take it seriously.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, I can't say that enough. Is how important it is to actually listen to what they're saying and understand that they mean it, that they say what they mean what they say. They are coming for you. They are coming for your guns. There's massive legislation about to be pushed out now, and all that, and that's for another time.
All we can pray for is that the conspiracy theories come true. Trump makes the proper arrests, takes back control of our country, but at that point, if that does happen, China, some people got to pay. Which, you know what that's leading to. People are already saying, if you watch on foreign news, that we've already entered World War III, we just don't know it
yet. Yeah. And I really feel that tension, and I think that's a great cliffhanger to leave off on before next week.
Yep, that's good to me.
All right, so if you've been enjoying this podcast at all, it's a little entertaining, you want to see it continue, please take a second, hit the like button, maybe think about subscribing, maybe share it with like-minded friends. That helps the channel out, and it gives us a reason to keep on doing it.
Even if you don't like it. You know
Yeah,
what
just
I mean?
like it anyway.
Like it anyway. Subscribe, show your friends.
Right, and just leave a comment that says I didn't mean that thumbs up.
Yeah.
I gave you a thumbs up, but it wasn't a real thumbs up. Actually, you're quite shit.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, all right, I understand. All right, so thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll talk again next week.